Okay, I'm gonna do like a bit of an abstract read at first, and then I'll go into it a little bit more. Um, there's something going on with like a blocked heart. And the light wants to come through. Um, the only reason it's blocked is because of the level of understanding, the level of knowledge. It currently feels like the situation is going to stay the same no matter what you do, or a person, or whatever it may be, right? It's something that feels like you cannot penetrate it, you cannot get through it, you cannot get close to it, you cannot break its walls. And it could be you yourself. It could be, well, it is. It's all of us. These are general messages. They're for the collective, so it's for everyone. It's anyone who connects with it and feels connected to the message. There's a way to perceive the situation differently that allows for more flexibility and space to engage in a way that opens and shifts. And there aren't a lot of people who know how to do this. And we're being encouraged to listen, to become more quiet and still. Instead of joining any kind of chaos, it's about reconnecting with the self, with the inner self, and finding that like home within, right? It's like a homecoming. I think I'll call it that, but I don't know for sure. Things are falling away now. The false self can no longer be held. Deep emotions here, held for so long at bay, are now being felt. The mask is being lifted and the facade is falling away piece by piece, making space for the authentic self to come forward and be realized. So that's the space, that's the flexibility. It's creating enough space for ourselves, our true selves, to come forward, but also for others to show up organically as they are. And it is being a container. If you've ever been to therapy or studied therapy, you know about creating a space, becoming a container, a containing space for another person. And I can tell you from my own experience, there are very little people who know how to do that. So that's our challenge. And the shifts that we're going through, as challenging and as confusing and as distorting as they may seem on the surface, are only to get us to that space of a deeper resonance, of a deeper stillness, a more powerful stillness, a more powerful silence. And this isn't a silence of allowing things to happen or turning a blind eye. It's a silence of inviting and humbling ourselves and not engaging in the chaos. There's a death experience. There's an ego death. And when you go through this kind of experience, from the few times I've went through it, or several times I went through it in my life, it's very earth-shattering. It's very scary. It's very overwhelming. It can take over all of your primal instincts to survive. You're fighting off this death experience because you want to survive. So you're doing everything in your power to stay sane, right? The way you think of sanity, the way you think of, this is how a normal person behaves in these conditions. I need to just kind of keep being normal. But this experience is here to shift you. I can change my patterns when I change my mind about them. Solar plexus. Let me figure this out. I know it's about confidence. I mean, I've checked it before on here, but I'm not very good with chakras. It governs the fire element inside of you. It's your strength, your vitality, your ego, your willpower, your stamina, your inner power. It's the center where you get things done and your sense of self. Okay. I surrender my desires, and I know the universe has my back. It's so intense because I feel like there's a big journey to get there. And the Nine of Wands here, there was one of the signs I did a reading for recently. I don't know if it was possibly Pisces. I think it was Pisces, if you look at it. It's the Pisces reading for June that I just uploaded yesterday. And it talks about this, because we had the same cards in the Pisces reading. The only card that's missing here that we had there, I believe, was the Nine of Pentacles. Yeah. So it's pretty much the same cards here. There's this need to overcome a lot of obstacles, a lot of tests and trials, a lot of challenges on your path that you kind of have to keep steadily dodging or dealing with. And you're going somewhere. And it kind of contradicts what I just said, because it's like, be receptive, be a container, contain this, and I'm telling you, dodge it. Because it's not about containing poison, right? It's about learning from those poisonous experiences you had in the past enough to know, this is poison, I'm not eating that. I'm not consuming this experience, I'm going to go around it. But there are certain things that you're meant to go through, or that you won't know. You won't have the foresight. Yeah. And then you go through it, and it's a challenge, and I'm thinking almost of these, like, I don't know if it's necessary to say this, but yeah, I'm thinking of like these video games you played in childhood, like Mario Brothers or whatever. And then some of those games had like bad things that you weren't supposed to collect, and things that you were supposed to collect, like mushrooms and whatever. Little ghost characters. That was Pac-Man, right? So anyways, it feels like that's kind of, you're going through this test. And there's things that you want. There's things that are going to fulfill you, that are going to make you happy, but you have to go through a lot of experience to get through there. And it feels like on some level you're not seeing the opportunity. Sorry, I keep saying you, but we are not seeing the opportunity that's being presented to us. And it's an opportunity for change. Six of Swords. It's an opportunity to get more peace, to overcome this challenge and see it from afar, from a distance, and say, wow, this, I surmounted that obstacle. And when you do, you gain all this wisdom through the Hermit. You become incredibly wise through the challenges and the tests and tribulations you're put through. And you might say, well, that's not what I wanted. That wasn't my wish. I wasn't wishing to be wise. I wasn't wishing to live a difficult life and then come out wiser. That's not what I'm here for. But that type of thinking or type of talking is just resistance to what I was saying originally, which is a change in our frequency that allows us to be more receptive. And when we are more receptive and more sensitive, we will clearly know, oh, that's an obstacle, I don't want to go through that. Or that's a poisonous thing, I don't need that. It's our consciousness that's changing. The more sensitive you are, and I don't mean sensitive as in the way that society thinks of sensitive. I mean sensitive as in able to sense things. You're able to sense when something's dangerous. You're able to sense when someone is being honest with you and truthful. You're able to sense when someone is lying. You're able to sense when this is dangerous, or this is a really good experience, or this is a wonderful home I'd like to buy. This is a home that has issues with it that I'm not being told about. You're sensing things on a deeper level because you're becoming more sensitive. And that's that stillness and that quiet that we all kind of need to learn. Why? I don't know. I mean, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? I don't know. I often ask those same questions. I think part of us wants to know things. Part of us wants to experience this earth. Part of our consciousness, part of our soul chose this earth experience. And I do think we could have chosen a different one. Why we chose the specific one, why our souls were drawn to the specific earthly experience. Probably contrast. Probably needing contrast in order to evolve. The soul remains, right? So the soul is not bound to the body or bound to the earth, but the soul may be attracted to experiences that challenge it to grow. It's the ego that wants the comfort. It's the ego that wants easy things. It's the soul that wants... The soul is going to say, bring it on. You've got another test, bring it on. But because you're becoming more sensitive, you can fly through those tests. You don't have to go through all these obstacles. It depends what round we're in. And each of us individually is kind of on a different... But because you're tapping into this message, some of us are all kind of on the same wavelength. Because something's drawing you to this video. I don't know what it is, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it. There's illusions. There's confusion. There's poverty. I mean, if I look at it on a global scale, there's homelessness. There's people who are doing drugs and getting addicted and getting confused and getting lost. And possibly some people tuning into this message are there, or in these places. And then it's important to hold space for yourself, to be compassionate for your own condition, because you're not going to be compassionate to yourself. You're not going to let yourself fall apart. And it's not about letting yourself fall apart, but it's about witnessing yourself when you do. And this is in however way this shows up in our lives. The Seven of Cups is confusion, disillusionment, being taken by all these beautiful options, but all these really scary experiences as well, and not knowing which one to choose, right? Not being sensitive enough. Being desensitized through trauma, through exposure to hard drugs, through exposure to alcohol, through exposure to bad influences and deception and negative people and lies and cheating and harm, toxicity, poison in the body, poison in the mind. And the only thing that poison can result in is a lack consciousness. It's a feeling of I'm not worthy, I don't deserve, I will not get, I will not have, only others will. It's that kind of energy. It does not, this confusion promises a lot. Drugs can promise a lot. When a person's taking a drug, they're escaping and they feel this expanse and they feel different and they feel like parts of their psyche are coming online that are usually not. And they're hypnotized almost in this, they're taken by this sensation. And people who go through that need grounding. They need experiences that make them feel safe in their body, safe in their home, safe in their environment, safe with the people that they know. Or the people that they don't know, just safety, and groundedness is very important. So I would pull out, for this, I would pull out the root chakra. But I guess it didn't come out for a reason. We got the solar plexus. And possibly we need that solar plexus to start making the changes that we need to see in our lives, to shift. I can change my patterns when I change my mind about them. There's shame with this, right? Poverty consciousness is going to cause shame. Any kind of addiction or any kind of confusion like that is going to cause a person to feel shameful. Shameful in taking responsibility, shameful in claiming their story as their own, shameful in showing up this way, scattered. But I just want to put this, out there that anyone who deals with these kinds of traumas in their lives, whether it's others around them who are chaotic or them themselves or a combination, some sort of combination of both, it's important to reduce the shame around it and to tell those stories, because when you start to tell stories like that, of course to people that feel safe and environments that are safe for you, you kind of shed those old layers, right? Those things are falling away now. The false self can no longer be held. Deep emotions here held for so long at bay are now being felt. The mask is being lifted and the facade is falling away piece by piece, making space for the authentic self to come forward and be realized. Exactly. I just had to pull that out quickly because it really resonates with this message of, if you start to share those stories, that shame lifts and your authentic self, right? That real confidence comes out. And I don't care what your story is. I was just picking out a random kind of, I know that it says imagination. The Seven of Cups, do you see that? Imagination. Seven of Cups deals with fantasy and kind of confusion and having a lot of options. And I look at it as a Neptune card. And Neptune, a lot of the times, deals with addictions. Because there's an escapist mentality, there's a desire to escape. If you're dealing with trauma and you do not have the tools to deal, you're going to look for an escape route. And the escape route might be a literal escape, like I need to get to shelter, right? It might be an escape like I'm going to take a drug. And if someone's dealing with that, there's a lack of safety. There's a lack of containment. And weren't we just talking about becoming a container? And that doesn't mean you become a container for abusive behavior, which can be really hard when you're in this state. It can be really hard to distinguish that. It can be hard to distinguish love from other types of relating that aren't really healthy. We're going to put these away now because I think we dealt with them. So I wanted to start this reading very differently, but I forgot about it. I was thinking of a family tree. I was thinking of how it starts off with, the eldest generation that you know of. And then from that eldest generation springs like all the family. Their children and their grandchildren. And the reason I brought that up, the reason that was important, is because I was trying to find some kind of map almost for these cards, how to read the cards. And the way I understood it when I was first looking at the cards, when I pulled them out, sometimes you kind of lose that because you're just kind of going with the messages as they show up, and then some of it changes for you because you're being receptive to the messages. But initially, the idea was this is the beginning of the family tree. This is the core. This is the root. So at the root of this reading, we have a home. We have a marriage or a home or a space where you are living or where you remember living. We have some kind of doorway to a new opportunity, to a change. You're at the fork in the road. Well, where do I go now? And we have this courage, but it's a courage of, it's an innocent courage. It's a courage of someone who's never been through the experience. It's a courage of someone who bravely wants to face the unknown because they've never faced it before and they don't actually know what the obstacles would be like if they did. My happiness can be measured by the level of my faith and love. This journey takes faith. It takes a certain blind faith because you're going through the dark with a hermit. He has a tiny lantern there in his hand, but he's mainly in the dark. He's going through this dark night of the soul. I had a client so many years ago. She just said, I'm going through the dark night of the soul, and I just let out this huge laugh because I never heard of that before, and I was being insensitive. I wasn't aware of what she was talking about. It took so many years for me to understand that phrase. And there is humor to it because we do often dramatize things in our minds. And then I had a different viewer on YouTube. I used to do readings on YouTube. I had a different viewer say that my wisdom is a certain wisdom that has to do with humor. It's like I'm laughing at things and I'm making them smaller or lighter than they really are, and that's how I overcome, and that's how I teach others to overcome. And that's a very personal message for me, but I also feel that, maybe that's an important tool sometimes. Humor. So through this journey of love, you find your happiness when you have faith in love, right? And that's when something returns to your life. A family, a friend, a love connection returns, and you feel seen and you feel mirrored. We feel seen, we feel mirrored by another person. And this is a painful journey, and I have to say why it's painful, because I think the things that you see and the things that you know after you go through this journey, the things that we see, the things that we know. And I just realized this is 20 and this is 2, right? So reduced to a 2. Never looked at that way. And what is judgment? Judgment is kind of coming back from death. It's a rebirth. We started with the death card. So when you come back from that experience, when we come back, it's very hard to connect with another person and feel this level of being seen. And the reason for that is because you've seen too much, you've been through too much. You cannot believe that another person will receive you that way. There's a level of vulnerability that is necessary for this process that feels just like it's too much to handle. It feels like too much. My eyes will see what I desire. Part of that is I surrender my desires and I know the universe will have my back. So when you see what you desire, Nine of Cups, you're no longer in the Four of Cups, because the Four of Cups is an energy of a continuation of that lack, of that poverty mentality. The Four of Cups is, I've been through so much, I don't want anything else. It's a person who's dealing with love like a salesperson. When you ever go, have you ever like gone to like a flea market, and like those flea markets that aren't, you know, not so much in the Western world, I don't think. I mean, maybe some parts of Europe, but they'll just like shout out prices to you or try to sell you things like in a very aggressive manner, or people trying to buy things in a very aggressive manner. And where does that come from? Where does that attitude towards love come from? There's an interrogation. This came up for Libra. Libra, June, the June reading for Libra. There's this interrogating of trying to figure out, what is this person, what are you selling me? What are you trying to sell me? What do you say about love? You're trying to sell me something? How much? How much for that cup of love? It's, I just got the word sleazy. But it's not that. It's coming from a place of trauma, right? It's reliving that trauma. And then no one's going to be able to face me in that way. I don't even know what to do with this reading. I just feel it's like one of the first times I think I feel this way. I don't know how to finish it. I want to look for one more card. I wish I had a book now. I'm not going to get up and get a book. But it helps me sometimes. So we have, these came up for another sign as well. I can't remember right now. And they came up the exact same way too. Oh wait, I will remember. Maybe Leo, possibly Leo, I'm not sure. But it was talking about these two types of leadership. There's a leadership of being the emperor, which is leading on the external. And then there's this inner leadership, which is being a mother. Being a mother to your inner child, being a mother to someone else. Motherhood can extend in so many ways. We often feel comfortable extending motherhood that way because it can veer into like unhealthy dynamics in relationships, right? When you feel your partner is your child, or they feel that you're their child. I mean, we all do that. I met someone once who told me that that exact thing. We shared this kind of understanding that we're all looking at each other as if we're looking for our father and mother in every person we meet. And this is showing up as the father and the mother. And I don't usually read strength as mother, but it's kind of happening lately where I'm seeing it as self-mothering. Emperor is traditionally, Aries, but it's also the father. And the mother deals with our emotions, moon sign, and the father deals with rules and regulations and structure, Saturn, karma. And what's the karma for this? I just had a video about healing generational karma. Is this the karma? No, I don't think so. I think this is getting through it. I think this is walking the path. It's surprising. The messages that come up can be really surprising. And the reason they're surprising is because Well, it's just very dynamic. It's very layered. In a sense, I'm now looking at a person who's very self-sufficient and knows how to handle their lives. Not only their own lives, but they can even be there for others to lead them and to guide them and to show them the path of balance. How much balance it takes to carry that on her head like that. The path of balance. By having this inner strength that you build through developing a relationship with your inner child. And so those old traumas, those old systems, those old operating ways are released. And then a relationship relating to another person in a loving way, it's not impossible anymore. It's not something that's hard to imagine when you're relating to yourself in a loving way. And everyone says that, and it gets annoying because you're like, what are they even talking about? You have to love yourself first? What does that mean? Maybe there was a function or a dysfunction in your childhood. And so you learn to reparent that child, that inner child, who wasn't taught how to take care of itself, who wasn't taught how to be compassionate and loving and kind to itself, who wasn't taught how to put healthy boundaries with itself and with others. And through that reparenting of self, you can now be in relationship. And I'm not even talking about romance or, physical intimacy. I'm just talking about the ability to connect and to be a containing space and to show up still and to show up silent and to show up kind and compassionate and caring and empathic. We're not taught that in school. And we're barely taught that in our family. Sometimes it comes through religion, but oftentimes in religion, and I don't want to upset anyone, but a lot of times what I've noticed in religion is you're taught the right way, but then you're shown the wrong way by the same people who have taught you the right way. And then you question it. It's just human nature. We're not going to be perfect. But when you're a child, you're impressionable, and it's hard to understand that, or it's hard to accept that someone's teaching you something, but then they're not practicing it. There's a level of honesty and transparency and sensitivity and courage to be this person, to be this strong, mainly for ourselves. As we learn to be stronger for ourselves, it becomes easier to show up strong for others because we're not resentful in the process. We're understanding that through the strength that we've shown ourselves, when we're strong for others, we're strong for ourselves. It's a continuation of that, but we first have to establish that if we haven't had it established in childhood. If we haven't had it established in those young pivotal years where your personality really gets formed, you go back and you reestablish it. And you take back ownership. And wasn't that what we were talking about here with addiction and people who struggle with this kind of storyline? It's difficult to take ownership or to take responsibility for something when there's so much shame around it. And it's internalized shame. It's not shame like that you cannot sit down with someone and say, well, this is shame because of this. It's actually shame because, well, it's gaslighting. All right, that's all we've got for today.